Hi YouTube, welcome to MA Academy C Pointers tutorial series. In this tutorial, I will show you guys what is pointer to a pointer and how it works. So let's get started. So in here, we can see that the first thing that we do is we create a variable. We say num is equal to 2123. So 2123 gets stored inside the memory. Then we say the pointer the pointer p is equal to the address of num. So whenever we use the ampersand, as I have mentioned in the few previous tutorials, it means that take the address of it and store it inside the p. Then we say int q is equal to p. So notice that in here we are using two asterisks. So it means that we are pointing to a pointer. So when you're using one asterisk, it means you're pointing to a variable in here. But when you're using two asterisks, it means you're pointing to a pointer that which in turn is pointing to a variable in here. And now this is a pointer to a pointer. So when you use a two asterisk, it is a pointer to a pointer. So in here, for the p, I said it's the address of num, and for the q, I'm saying take the address of q. So p is pointing to the address of num, and q is pointing to the address of p. So through this q, we can not only access p, but since p is pointing to the variable num, so we can also access this num in here, this variable num, or the contents of the variable num, by using this q in here. So how does it work? So in here you can see that let's say we have a variable num which contains 2123. So it resides inside the memory. It will have an address. So let's say its address is 100C. Then we create a pointer. It's p. We call it p, and this is pointing to the address of num. So in here you can see that I said p is equal to address of num. So this ampersand is the address of operator. So in here you can see that since it has an address of 100C, we can see that this address gets stored inside the p in here, the p pointer. But of course the p, since it resides inside the memory, so in here we can see that the p resides inside the memory, so it will have its own address, right? So if it has its own address, this is its address. But then what do we say? We say int q is equal to address of p. So whatever the address of p is, so it's 1008. So q, we see that q is equal to 1008. So this is the address of p, and it's 1008. We have this address stored inside the q. So of course, since q resides inside the memory, we can see that q resides inside the memory. So q will also have its own address. So this is how it works. So this is a q is a pointer that is pointing to a pointer, which again in turn is pointing to a variable in here. So this is how it looks like. So let me open this program in here. I've created this. So it's I set int num is equal to 2123. Then I declare this pointer, which is equal to num, to the address of num, and then I create a pointer to a pointer, which again is equal to the address of this pointer that we created in here. So first we say show me the address of q. So it is the address of the q itself. So this is the address, wherever this q resides in the memory. So if I open this diagram in here, it will be this address in here, which in this case is 1004. So whenever we are printing this line in here, it will give me the address of q. So let's run this. So this is the address of the q. This is where the q resides inside the memory. So in here, we can see that its address ends in F4, F8. So in here, if you look at this diagram, so you can see that Q has its own address. In this case, for simplicity's sake, I'm using simple numbers, so we can say that it's 1004. Next, the second thing I'm doing is I'm saying show me the contents of the Q. So this Q, whatever it contains, give me its contents. So in here, so it gives me this N here, which ends in F500. So F500, it is the address of, it's the contents of the variable Q. So what does it stand for? So the contents of the Q, this 1008. So what is this 1008? So 1008 is the address of P. So we can see that the address of P is what? 1008. So when you say print Q, which you can see in here, it prints 1008. So 1008 is the address of P. Next, what we say give me the whatever this Q is pointing to. So in here it's a Q is, we can say that Q is pointing to the P. So when you say give me that, so we are saying whatever the contents of the P is. So in here, let's look at this. So when we say print Q, so it prints what? 100C. So it is the contents of the P pointer in here. So we can see that it's 100 and C. So in here, this should be it. So it's giving me the address F508. And at last, I'm saying give me the value of whatever this Q is pointing to. So Q is pointing to P, which in turn is pointing to num. So when we do that, it gives me 2123. So in here, you can see that again when I'm using two asterisks in here. So it gives me whatever it's pointing. So it's one is it is pointing to this one in here. So this one, when we use it, so it gives me the value of the P. When I'm using two asterisks, it gives me the value of this in here, the num. So we can see that it is 2123. So ignore this 0x, it shouldn't be in here. So it gives me the value of this 2123. So it's not this /6, it's not an address, guys. It's a mistake. I will delete it before posting it on my website. So it's 2123. So this is how you can also understand it from this diagram in here. So Q has this address, and when you're using the one asterisk with Q, it gives us the contents of this in here, and when you're using two asterisks, it gives me the contents of this node in here, or this memory location which resides two places from the Q in here. So this is how you can use it. So just to check, so I said in here Q is equal to whatever its contents is. So Q is 1008. So what is 1008? 1008 is the address of P. So if we quickly do something like this, so if I say give me the address of P, so if I run it, so this line in here, the second line, it contains 500, and you can see that they are both the same because this Q contains the address of P. Then again, this P contains the address of num. So this is how it works. So this is it for this one, guys. If you have any questions, suggestions, or recommendations, feel free to put it in the comment section below. And if you found this tutorial useful, make sure to share it with your friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one.